Tonight, we're going to be looking at fake news and misinformation and how that applies to Alex Jones and others. So, Alex Jones, he sits in a studio behind a desk with a menagerie of paperwork in front of him. But does that make him credible? No. Tonight, we discuss his role in the anti-vaccination social movement, his role in misinformation as well. So join me as we examine the ethics, abuse of power, and the responsibility media figures hold in shaping public discourse. Now, to those of you who may align themselves with him, I ask you to keep an open mind. Your initial reaction might be, hey, that's my guy, and provide an example where he got one right. Well, my friends, even a broken clock is right once a day. And I ask you to consider, does that one time outweigh the rest? Is that one time of good information worth the rest of the bad information? So, let's get into it. Alex Jones, this guy right here, he became very popular as he began as a radio host in Austin, Texas in the 90s. He began to gain attention when Y2K occurred. His anti-establishment stance hooked those with an inclination towards conspiracy theories. His base began to build. In 1999, he founded InfoWars, who sold conspiracy theories packaged as news and transitioned from radio to an online presence at that point. His base built quickly and gained a massive online presence. His major controversies: the government organized 9/11, that the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was a hoax, Pizzagate, QAnon, January 6 Capitol riots, and health misinformation. Due to his behavior, he has been banned from all major platforms, for example, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. Furthermore, he has been found guilty of defamation court rulings exceeding $1 billion, making money. Now, also, there is, and this is where it matters to me a lot, there is a course that is mandatory in any media studies in college. It's called Ethics and Communication, among other titles. I know, I took it. In said course, you discuss responsibilities, those who hold a position where others listen to you. Consider for a moment just how much social interactions with others would change if there was no news, if the internet shut down and the printing press broke down. Your discussions would probably only be about what's going on within a few miles around you rather than tens of thousands. You'd most likely have more friends. As such, the media has a direct impact on those social interactions and therefore a responsibility. You see, we all play a role in society, and we usually dress, act, work, and live in an environment that reflects that role. Alex Jones masked his role as a credible journalist sitting behind a desk, a prop of paperwork upon it, with screens behind him, a teleprompter and camera in front of him, a nice shirt, and voice that projects. But it's an act and a manipulation. That paperwork is nothing more than a visual representation of a source of information to get the audience to believe that what he's saying is credible and the truth. Kind of like a clipboard. It grants unsaid credibility, as in society, often those who are in a position of authority have one. You see, he exploits the cognitive associations we associate with the role of a journalist by mimicking their role in society. Some might say, oh, people don't listen to him. They don't believe it, but they do. According to Silent Bio, InfoWars was earning between $20 and $50 million Alex Jones testified in 2014 that InfoWars made $20 million annually. According to the Rolling Stones, Alex Jones' InfoWars store sold $165 million over 3 years, beginning in September 2015. His primary products being vitamin supplements and survival gear. You don't make that without people listening to purchase what he's selling. And that's the problem. People are listening. Anti-vaccination movement, one of the most damaging spread of disinformation where he abused his position, has been his rhetoric within that context. I'd like to pull up a study, which we have right here. What I'm going to be citing here is from the Lancet paper, or excuse me, not the Lancet paper, but from the BMJ, who did some excellent investigative journalism. They went and met with the individuals noted right here, the individuals being the 12 children's parents. They tracked them down to confirm what information was true, as the claim that this individual made, the doctor that wrote this, the primary author, was that there was a link between autism and vaccines. Now, one of the big issues with this is the sample size. It's very small. Also, it's a case study. The problem with case studies is you are picking your participants, right? So it's basically setting you up for the conclusion that you're seeking. Now, mind you, if you are already seeking a conclusion and you're picking those who you want to participate, that's a problem, right? Not only because you're going to get the answer that you want, but why are you doing that? Often, or not often, excuse me, it's actually a big issue in academia, where it's discussed quite often, is to not have any financial link to it. In other words, you're getting paid to get a desired outcome in your research. Most academic projects, they are funded by grants, and they're not connected to a private institution. And it's important because one of the things in science is you're supposed to stay neutral. If you don't, you are biased, and what you're getting is not legitimate. So, some of the things involved with this is, this was published in the Lancet in 1998, and not only did he say there was a link with autism, but he also came up with an apparent new syndrome which he related to autism. And again, he had no at all justification behind this. So let's look at the sample. So again, this is 12 children. 3 of the 9 children reported with regressive autism did not have autism diagnosed at all. Only 1 child clearly had regressive autism. Despite the paper claiming that all 12 children were previously normal, 5 had documented pre-existing developmental concerns. And you can see this information right here. Now, some children were reported to have experienced first behavioral symptoms within days of the MMR vaccine. That's measles, mumps, and rubella. But the records documented these at starting some months after vaccination. In 9 of these cases, unremarkable colonic histopathology results, noting no or minimal fluctuations in inflammatory cell populations, were changed after a medical school research review to nonspecific colitis. The parents of 8 children were reported as blaming MMR, but 11 families made this allegation at the hospital. The exclusions of 3 allegations, all giving times to onset of problems in months, helped to create the appearance of a 14-day temporal link. Patients were recruited through an anti-MMR campaigner, and the study was commissioned and funded for planned litigation. Now, this funded portion, I looked into that a little bit further. The amount that he was making then was huge. I think it was something along the lines of 265 pounds. Don't quote me, but I can provide the information of with where I got that being this BMJ article. Oh, you know what? I think I know where it's at. Here we go. Right here. This is the title. How the case against the MMR vaccine was fixed. Again at the BMJ. So you can look that up and find it yourself if you want to read further. It's an excellent sort of it's an excellent source of information. These contain literal quotations of responses from questions asked regarding the study from the parents. So this is a first-hand account. It's not a he said, she said thing, right? Another thing with it is there was, again, significant bias regarding it. The pre-existing problems associated with the children. And just think, right? Everybody has this vaccination. And if you're picking from a pool, of course, you're going to be able to draw some type of association. But it's really important to not confuse a correlation with a causation. Now, what I'd also like to look up is an interview. Because guess what? Of course, this guy ended up getting into problems. And again, this is a retracted study. And one of the reasons for that is because they ended up pulling this individual's medical license for good reason, too. Because another thing he did was he subjected patients to undue harm. Now, in the US, and I'm sure there's a similar type of board that's in the UK, we have what's called the IRB, the International Review Board. It being international probably means it's covered also in the UK. But what they do is they review any type of study that is going to be performed on humans. And the reason being is you don't want to cause any undue harm. It's kind of a balance of, gain versus loss. But it has to be cleared in order to do this. So, thought this guy would probably be associated with Alex Jones. And guess what? I was right. I'd like to say it's a big surprise, but it's not. And again, this was published back in 1988. So it is slightly dated, but this has been used for such a long time. Such a long time. So let's take a look at this. And let's just observe what he's selling, right? Or how he has framed his show in order to attract a certain audience. I mean, there is a strategy to this stuff. I don't think people consider that, but you do attract a certain type given your message. So first thing, right? We got something appearing to be the White House. We got Nazi symbols on it, right? This is creating that symbol of an oppressive power in the US, right? This anti-government. And look at the military involved with it. They're coming for you, right? They're gonna get you. Good old Rage Against Machines, playing in the background, rock on.
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups.
There's the 9/11.
You want answers? Well, so does he.
So does he. He's gonna get them. Yeah, you go, Alex Jones. Get it.
Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
That's going to trigger copyright. Get it, Alex Jones. Get it. You're such a badass. Fight the power.
Dr. Wakefield is an academic gastroenterologist.
Andrew Wakefield, he was the primary author.
Pronouncing that right. He received his medical degree from St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, part of the University of London in '81. One of a fourth generation of his family to have studied medicine at the teaching hospital. He qualified as a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons in '85 and '90.
So he starts off with reading all these credentials, right? In order to grant credibility to the voice that is about to speak.
Awarded the Wellcome Trust Traveling Fellowship, studies small intestinal transplantation in Toronto, Canada. He has made a fellow of the Royal College of Pathologists in 2001. He has published over 140 original scientific.
And again, there was an important thing noted right there. His medical degree and what he studies is related to gastrointestinal health. So this is an individual who focuses in that area, now drawing conclusions into autism. Completely different subjects, completely different categories within the medical field. I can't express enough just how specific niches are when you get into academia.
Articles, book chapters, and invited scientific commentaries. Invited scientific commentaries, and it goes on in the pursuit of possible links between childhood vaccines and
Hold on, check the audio on that. Make sure it's not too loud.
inflammation and neurologic injury in children. Dr. Wakefield lost his job in the Department of Medicine in London's Royal Free Hospital, his country, his career, and his medical license. And the website is callous-disregard.com. And, of course, he knows Jenny McCarthy, and, you know, everybody else has been speaking out against this. But here he is to be able to put it on the record for folks out there what's really going on, what the real science is. Dr. Wakefield, thanks for joining us.
Alex, thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about your research, what you discovered, and what they're trying to do to you right now.
Well, first of all,
what they are trying to do, right? Because it's got to be an ominous type of creation out there to come after them. It can't be just a person or a small institution. It has to be something ominous, something with no name, this invisible power.
Readers and your enlightened viewers who will already know the allegations made.
Enlightened viewers, flattery. That is a big deal. It really is.
Me by the British freelance journalist Brian Deere are completely false. They're completely false. Not because I say so, because the documents say so. And you've been kind enough to put my book out there in the past and recommended Callous Disregard, which meticulously takes every one of his allegations, dissects it, and offers a coherent answer that completely rejects his position. Now, the allegations that he's made are over a year old. So why have they now been rehashed? Why have they now been put in front of the media again in a desperate attempt to stop valid scientific research into safety concerns about vaccines?
So that right there, valid safety research. As you will hear in this, there is consistent links to other studies. So how can there be this all-powerful entity stopping further research when there is further research? I can't tell you how many articles are out there on autism and vaccines and how many studies that have been done looking for problems associated with it.
That's what this is about. It's about
just go to Google Scholar and do a search.
The messenger and shooting him because it doesn't fit with their agenda. It compromises their policy, it compromises their bottom line, and they do not want to hear about it. As you rightly...
Okay, so this whole bottom line thing, I found that the cost of the measles, I can't say the measles, mumps, and rubella, but the measles was $1. And we'll get into this a little bit further with another topic, but we have a tax that is taken out of that of 75 cents. So how much money are they making, right?
Yeah, there are a whole host of scientists around the world now who have reproduced these findings. And perhaps more important,
I thought they were stopping it.
so the people have spoken. Last year, they did a survey at the University of Michigan. 25% of people, parents, believe that vaccines cause autism. Now, that's despite...
Okay, big thing right here. There's something called the social contagion effect. Again, this was popularized in the media. So everyone is going to be thinking that their child's autism has to be linked to something, right? So if you are hearing that vaccines are causing autism and your child ends up unfortunately getting or developing autism, you are going to make that instant association that vaccines has caused autism. Now, mind you, again, the entire population, just about, it's reducing now, is vaccinated. So any individual who gets autism will most likely have the vaccine. Do you see the problem? It's a big problem.
Extraordinarily intensive, expensive, and elaborate campaign against me and against parents who believe there's a problem. A public relations campaign. This year, I've just been sent a document showing that there's a local poll in Ohio, a popular poll showing it's now 61% of parents believe that vaccines cause autism. Now, what?
Okay, so in Ohio, I don't know where this said poll was done, but it's very important to note that where you pull your sample from, that is from a population of people, if there is an agenda, I'm not necessarily saying there was in this case, I don't know, but if there is, if you are seeking a type of answer, you will get the answer you want, depending on that population. It has to be taken from multiple sources all across the US in this case, right? Because let's say I want to write an article that says 90% of individuals are against Trump, that people don't support him. That's how I want to frame it. If I go and take a poll at, let's say, a liberal college, Portland State, let's say, where I went to, I'm going to get the responses that I want to write that article. So it's very important to consider the methodologies. If they don't report them, there might be something to it.
Respective merits of those polls, what they tell us is that that public relations campaign has failed. It's failed because the problem is real. The parent's story is correct, and it's up to scientists and physicians like me to investigate it to the best of our ability to determine what the truth is.
Tell us how you started to investigate and what your findings are. But again, just looking at it, talking to parents who have autistic children, they talk about the baby was fine, 18 months old, running around, giggling, laughing. They get that.
I can really see Alex Jones going and interviewing parents one-on-one.
Third round of shots is generally when it's triggered. I guess that overload, they get a fever. Suddenly, they go into that autistic stupor or that whole spectrum. And then associated with it is all sorts of diarrhea and intestinal problems. And so somebody who's a medical doctor who studies the intestines and the gut, why would you not go look at that and try to look at why those two things are correlated? Is that correct?
Oh, you've got it in a nutshell. I mean, what?
And again, correlation does not equal causation. One of the most important things that wasn't done in his study in order to make said claim is he did not pull from a random sample. It was a case study. A random sample within a population is needed.
On May the 17th, 1995, is the first parent called me and said, Dr. Wakefield, my child was fine. They had their MMR vaccine, they regressed into autism, and they developed terrible gastrointestinal problems. And I know many, many parents, both here and abroad, who are in exactly that same position. And I said, wow, I know nothing about autism because at medical school, it was
I'm glad he said that, because he does know nothing about
in 10,000 children. We didn't know anything about it. We weren't taught about it.
In fact, I've seen numbers of 1 in 25,000 30 years ago versus 1 in 10,000. What's the accurate number? What was the old number for autism? And I know before it was like very rare.
It was such a rarity, such an oddity that no one had ways of monitoring it. No one knew. It just was so rare that it was speculation really about the precise numbers.
And now they say it's over-reporting, but when I go to a movie theater with my children, I remember going to movies when I was a child, there was no one autistic there. Now they might have several rows filled.
Oh, yeah, because we've all gone to the movie theater and seen this. It just happens all the time. Thank you, Alex. You make a great point. I have a better point. They're talking about these increased rates, right? Again, this study was put out in 1998. This is later. What changes? Things, everything in life, especially in academia or just our language in general, we change the definitions of things. There's something called the DSM. The DSM is used to classify certain disorders, for example, autism. And I looked a little bit into this because I thought, what could cause all these increases? Well, and this is important, Asperger's, it was first added to the DSM in 1995. It was removed in 2013, where it became, there we go, where it became included in autism spectrum disorder, which is new, right? I know I have autistic characteristics. I can't stand fabrics rubbing together. It drives me absolutely insane. I literally get a physical reaction to it. I could probably be put on that range to some degree. Many people can. And that is important because so many people are now being included. Now, is that caused by vaccines, or is it caused by our change of definition, where we include more people within the population into that category? We have really developed in our society now this spectrum of how things work, whether it be gender or autism. It provides more options and categories for people to be placed in under a larger one. So, very important point. Very, very important point. Things change. Our language changes. It defines us.
They have whole wings of public schools. Now I go to the park and there's autistic children just everywhere. I mean, it's like an epidemic. I mean, and these people aren't faking this. They're completely not in this world.
No, and it's gone now from those numbers, those rare numbers, to over 1 in 100 in this country, 1 in 68 in the UK, and amongst certain populations like the Somali population in Minneapolis, it's around 1 in 28 children. That is a staggering level of disease. I was on a plane coming back from New York last night, and the child sitting right behind me, who kicked my seat all the way from New York to Austin, had autism.
No, it's the same thing.
These are such theatrical claims. to be had. It's just theatrics.
A lot, and almost every time, or I'm in a restaurant or a movie, you can look and see it's an autistic child, and you'll see their good-looking parents, and you look at the child, they're handsome, they're pretty, but you see them just with their humanity has been stolen from them, and they still got their humanity, but their potential, and it makes me so sick. And we're just supposed to think, oh, well, this is just happening. I mean, sure, everybody's starting to, become autistic. Let's ignore it. So you start researching it, doctor.
Yeah, what you do, medicine starts with the history. What does the parent tell you about what happened to their child? That's the beginning of everything. You examine the child. You investigate their symptoms properly. You don't say, your child's got autism, therefore they're bound to have diarrhea 12 times a day. Put them in a corner, forget about them, move on with your life. You do not do that. That's not good medicine. It's not medicine at all. And so what we did at the Royal Free was take these children with clear sickness, clear illness, and investigate their symptoms appropriately. And what we found is that the parents were right. The children had an intestinal disease. And when we treated that disease, as you would treat Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, with anti-inflammatory medication, the children started to get better. They started to speak, they started to smile, they were out of pain, they would sleep at night. And that was the beginning of a fascinating journey and a very
Now, if you recall the critiques in the study that I read off, those claims are not true. He is lying.
Journey. And others now around the world have replicated our findings. And one of the things, I was on a show the other day.
Around the world. No one can study this topic, but people are doing it around the world. Makes perfect sense.
Where they called me a liar. I think Anderson Cooper called me a liar for saying that the work had been repeated by others around the world. Well, it has. The work with identifying the bowel disease in children, that's been replicated in Italy, Poland, Canada, the United States.
Well, I mean, I read the international news. It's in prestigious papers constantly that they've replicated. And then they just call you a liar. Stay there, doctor. I want to come back and get into some of those that have replicated it and how this PR campaign is backfiring on them. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Here's the book that tells the truth, and it's available on Amazon, you name it. We also sell it at Infowars.com. Andrew J. Wakefield, forward by Jenny McCarthy. Very important. And the way they've demonized Jenny McCarthy, like, oh, she's just doing this for attention. No, she has an autistic child. Or you, how dare you? I mean, they talk to you like you are Satan when you're on these shows. This is your chance, uninterrupted, to counter these people.
It's because he harmed children needlessly. He did not need to do it. He took advantage of them.
Thank you very much. The problem is real. It's not going to go away. And
I can't stress enough in academia, when it comes to those of us who have studied research methodology, how much ethics are pushed on us. It is a huge deal, as those involved in it have a sense of responsibility. And they do. These are people in authority that individuals listen to, and it matters, and it's important.
Important things out.
Those in institutions, those in those positions, they want people to trust them. Many of them, the majority of them, have good intentions. There's always going to be these outliers in any population.
So what we can say is that there is a bowel disease in many, many of these children, the treatment of which makes them better. So thousands of children have benefited from our observations 15 years ago that were driven by parental insights. It's the parents that drew our attention to this.
What did you find in their intestines? What's going on, as best you know? Why does it hit boys 4-to-1?
4-to-1, we don't know why boys, but this is in common with a number of neurological and psychiatric disorders.
It is true that autism does affect men more than women.
That they seem to affect boys. Now, it's interesting that estrogen protects the brain. So is it possible that girls have a brain that's protected from this? Girls seem to be less susceptible to infections in early life.
Doctors have always known women are tougher.
Absolutely. They remain that way for the rest of their lives. But so it may be that there are immunological reasons or developmental reasons or genetic reasons why girls are more robust in these circumstances.
Sounds like there might be a lot of things to this.
Don't experience the same kind of problem. Nonetheless, what we see is a bowel disease that seems to affect anywhere from the top of the gut right the way down through the bottom. The children are in pain. There's no doubt they're in pain. But of course, they've lost the ability to express that. They can't speak anymore, or they can't communicate in the way that they could, so they can't tell parents that they've got gastrointestinal problems. They can't tell them that they've got tummy pain because they...
What's the trigger in the MMR?
Well, we don't know, and this is what we're looking at. Is it the MMR? We don't know. Do we think that the MMR is implicated? Yes, I do. But
Depending on time, I'll bring it up. But in the study, the associations and the claims that he makes are clear that he is drawing a conclusion.
I have no proof of that. That's my opinion.
In other words, making a statement based on this evidence that he creates.
My opinion isn't worth much compared...
I mean, there's all these other studies, too, in like Italy and other places you mentioned. We can go over some of those if you like, but anybody can type in, Italian study shows link to vaccines and intestinal problems. It'll come up. Or the German
I should have done that. I really should have done that.
studies. I mean, there's so many. I mean, is there any idea what's doing it? I mean, we know that there's this, correlation between vaccines and this problem, but I mean, any idea?
Well, the problem here, Alex, is it's so complicated. It's not just a live viral vaccine that kids are getting, but at the same time, they're getting vaccines that have mercury in, like the influenza or the meningococcal vaccine.
All right. That was one claim that I did look into. And what he's talking about, again, is like the mercury and the aluminum. What I found out is that aluminum is not considered a heavy metal, and that it is in the same category as potassium. Also, this claim regarding the flu vaccine, it is the closest that you are going to get to a type of mercury. It is thimerosal, and it breaks down to ethyl mercury. I got this stuff from Vaxopedia, which I highly recommend going and looking into for any further questions, as it is a good source for information.
Vaccines that have aluminum in at high concentrations. What are these neurotoxic substances doing in there? What are these poisons to the immune system actually doing in there? They shouldn't be injected into the bodies of children.
And the gut, of course, has the highest flora of natural, bacteria, viruses. So is it causing some type of trigger, or we don't know?
Well, it could well be. So you've got all this combination of toxic substances being loaded into children. There could be any kind of synergistic interaction. If you went to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and you said, I've got these 3 blood pressure drugs. I want to put them in the same capsule and give them to patients, they'd throw you out of the door. Why? Because all your patients would die. Because the interaction between those 3 blood pressure drugs would kill your patients. They would drop their blood pressure into their boots. And yet, when it comes to vaccines, they get past all of this kind of regulatory control. They can put 3 viruses, 4 viruses in. They give pentavalent, heptavalent vaccines with all kinds of things in. And there is no proper regulation of safety standards for vaccines. Beyond that...
Okay, so 1, we have the FDA. 2, he is going to get into something regarding specific claims of individuals made. And you've heard it mentioned with Alex as well, of these claims that parents are making. Those, not his in the way that he's framing it, but there are individuals that have been hurt from vaccines. And we have on each vaccine a tax of 75 cents. And that tax goes to what we created a long time ago, to what we call the vaccine court in the US. That 75 cents, it is allocated to the reimbursement of those harmed if the case is found true. So we have a way to help those who have been harmed. In relations to this specific claim of autism and vaccines, there has been no specific proof or evidence that the vaccine causes autism, but there have been cases, one, where it is caused by a secondary effect. In other words, it causing a condition that then induces symptoms of autism. It is extremely rare, but it has occurred, And despite these claims that there is no avenue and this great power fighting against people, there are available avenues for people to seek restitution and get help if there has been harm done. So the way that they are framing this, that it is this big, bad, powerful thing, it is simply, it's not true at all. And I found an extremely well-written article in 2010, and I know that's dated, but it's relevant to the time frame that they are speaking. And it's called "The Immune Response," quote, "The Supreme Court may tell families with autistic children whether they can sue vaccine makers." It is by Wendy N. Davis, and it was published in the ABA Journal. And it is fantastic. It is very neutral. This individual proposes both sides and portrays it very well in their writing. And I highly recommend, if you are interested in it, that is a great place to start. The reason why it says the Supreme Court may tell families with autistic children whether they can sue vaccine makers is because the vaccine court, it was created to protect the vaccine makers. Now, some may say, like they will, that makes them beholden to no one, right? That they can just do whatever the hell they want. I mean, if they just want to kill people and cause autism, screw it. Let's do it. But what that does is it does protect them for good reason. If everybody thinks that something is causing this effect, all of a sudden, the amount of lawsuits that are going to be going towards them are going to be immeasurable. It will go crazy, which often occurs in populations. Another thing that it does, which is beneficial, is it creates a market for it. And many things are about money, but businesses have to make money. If there is no gain in it, right? If there is no profit as a business, there's no reason to do it. And that is another important thing, because a business, especially drug manufacturers, they want repeat customers. They don't want to cause undue harm. They want you to come back. They want the people to take it. If it is causing harm, then they're not going to make any money. So this protection is a very good idea. It doesn't stop them from creating something better. If anything, it helps influence that outcome because there's not as much concern. There's not as much liability.
The manufacturers are not liable. So it's a great market. Why would you not get involved if there's no liability and only profit?
And now most of them are being made in China.
Now, I didn't know that. I mean,
yeah, a lot of the vaccines are being made in China.
I didn't check that claim, but it's probably BS.
So think about that with the record of the melamine and the rest of it. So you were telling me during the break about some of these shows, the way they're going after you and building these straw men up.
Well, I think that what's obvious to me is that they're extremely angry. They're extremely angry because they've read this story from the journalist in the UK. They've bought into the idea that it must be true. They don't care that there's another side to this. They don't care that 89% of parents in this country put vaccine safety research as their number one medical research priority. 89%. Again, the people have spoken, but they don't care about that. What they care about is pinning this on one person to blame them for what has happened. And
because of your courage, you've been picked as the patsy. Plus, you come off as very credible. You have a great medical pedigree, all these awards and laurels. They think if they can cut your head off.
If anything, it was pulled for ethical reasons. not a failure of research, of ethical reasons.
Scare everybody else. Just like with the global warming, they want to crucify a few researchers as they tried a decade ago, but that backfired too. Now it's been proven to be a fraud.
I think this is real. What they do is they isolate me and they show the rest of the medical profession, the scientific profession, if you get involved in this, this is what's going to happen to you. Your career is going to be destroyed. You're going to
But everybody's researching it.
your career, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your medical license, and you're going to lose your country. Well, for me, if that happens, okay. But every time I see a kid with autism, I think I don't have a problem. I think I've got a job to do and I'm going to do it. And I don't know whether vaccines cause autism or not, but I am going to try and find.
Glad he said that.
I'm going to do my very best to find out because the issue is too important not to.
Absolutely. And
do you see how much what he says contradicts what he knows? It's such an interesting contrast. So interesting. I'm going to make all of these, suggestions that they might have something to do with vaccines. But I don't really know what the hell's going on.
when we come back, you were telling me during the break how they had some family on who didn't take a vaccine. They were trying to blame you. You've been very moderate is why they hate you, because you come off as credible. You just said, I want to research this more. And so they go after you because you're so effective. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how we can help children. What we have found is helping them. We'll be right back with our guest, Dr. Andrew Wakefield. We are back live, ladies and gentlemen. Callous disregard, autism and vaccines, the truth behind a tragedy. Andrew J. Wakefield, forward by Jenny McCarthy. Excellent book. Now, you can cover whatever you want in the 30 minutes we've got left, but I'd like you first to go through their lies, go through the things they've done. The first one I threw out to you was, I remember reading, it's incredible, hoax, doctor exposed, and I read, in studies, he paid people for blood samples. And I'll go, well, wait, every research study I've heard of, or almost all of them, people are paid to be part of the research study. But then you went further. It turned out you didn't even do that. So, I mean, it's just, but they're playing on people's ignorance to even try that. So let's talk, Doctor, specifically about the type of fraud you're talking about here.
Certainly, Alex. So one of the allegations that's been made and has been repeated in the media is that the Lancet study of 1998, those 12 children who had autism and bowel disease, that somehow I paid them to take part in the study. Nothing could be further from the truth. They were clinical patients seen at the Royal Free as part of the National Health Service, and they were investigated according to their symptoms.
I believe that claim is true. I didn't find anything about him paying these people, but it's about him picking the people that he wants, because guess what? He was already getting paid.
I paid them nothing at all. The truth is that as a later study, looking at blood measurements in a research setting, I asked my children if they would be prepared to give me a blood sample, and they said yes. And their friends at a birthday party also agreed. It was done with fully informed parental and child consent. Many of the parents were doctors. And so they allowed their children to have a blood sample taken. The kids were fine, and they got the equivalent of about $7.50 for their trouble.
Okay. So that is that. I didn't find anything about what he is talking about as the issue. Never came up in any of the academic articles written about this that have been published and peer-reviewed by other people, or investigative journalists who have looked into it themselves. So I think he's really just saying that to make it sound like he's being persecuted for something that is not a problem, rather than discussing what he was actually persecuted for. So that is that. I wonder if I have that article that I can show. It was such a good article. I don't think. No. Okay. We'll move on. But check out that article. It was really good. It led to a lot of good further information to read up on in this topic. For example, the vaccine courts, to hear how they work. It also gave mention of specific families that have been harmed in relation to this topic. So then you can go and look up that information and read regarding the legitimacy of their claims and how it's worked out. Because I believe it was written in 2010, I did look up on how that case had proceeded. And mind you, they did have a very long and what sounds like atrocious time to get to this end, but they did end up getting restitution from the vaccine courts for their trouble. But it's just the way that it's framed is such a marketing campaign. Such a marketing campaign. And just to kind of bring all of this together to a conclusion, Alex Jones's career, it reflects the rise of conspiracy culture and the challenges of misinformation. The cautionary message I seek to express is that we should be critical of those that we listen to. Because if we don't, it leaves us open to be taken advantage of from others. No one will be perfect. There will be mistakes made. However, there can be harm done from actions such as his. According to the CDC, and this is the side that they leave out, right? According to the CDC, in 2024, there were a total of 284 cases, 42% under the age of 5 years old, of the measles. 89% of the 284 cases were unvaccinated or unknown. Also, according to the CDC, measles cases have surged worldwide, infecting 10.3 million people, with an estimated 107,500 people, mostly children younger than 5 years of age, died. Conspiracy capitalizes on uncertainty and simplistic answers to complex questions. Have there been incidents of harm? Yes, but all treatments have risk. Consider before the vaccine in 1963, it was estimated that 3 to 4 million people were infected each year. Imagine those numbers with the population we have today. The amount of harm caused by an unvaccinated population would be extreme. This is the consideration that is often left out. So, thank you for listening to this. Please consider hitting that like, share, and subscribe button along with that bell so you receive a notification. If you are not watching on YouTube, check it out. It's fun. I got a bit of red, which I categorize as that satire and good times. And I got a bit of that blue, which is more focused on sincere topics of interviews with wonderful individuals that come on the show. And then, of course, you got this, that red and blue, that blend where I try to bring them together. But, yeah. So, thank you, everyone, for watching. I appreciate your time and consideration. Let's see what's going on TikTok. I usually just get off it. Which, by the way, speaking about TikTok, I made a video called Propaganda, How to Spot It and How to Fight It. Out of all the videos they wouldn't allow me to promote, that was it. Another video that I tried to promote was one regarding Tim Pool and how he sells and markets division rather than unity. And guess what? That one too was declined for, salesperson or to be able to promote. I find it interesting because, we always hear those claims that, they are part of propaganda. It's true. It's true. I have the screenshots to prove it. I've been waiting to post about it because I've tried to reach out to them and they have gotten back to me, but apparently that didn't make a difference because I've tried again. My views after that video have tanked, which I really don't care about. I'd rather just now continue to poke the bear. I find that entertaining. But they are a source of bad information, and the messages they choose to put out in society are not beneficial at all. They are not seeking to bring unity, but they are seeking to bring division, and they are marketing on that. And one of the things I'm going to talk about next Tuesday, if you stick around for that, is another thing that they're promoting, which is these transactional types of relationships, these developments of parasocial, you know, excuse me, where they promote the development of parasocial relationships and they exploit that for our most basic needs of social interaction with people. I screen recorded my phone for 40 minutes and I did it nonstop. I got the video that I made to prove it, and I just swiped through these live feeds. And what I seen was very, very interesting because I did not know that this existed, but I seen an individual gifting these digital roses and digital confetti and other types of digital currency to women, which I found very interesting and happened to give my response to that in the chat, which was, what are you expecting to get out of this? You know, usually in my personal experience, I haven't experienced a gift being given to another individual without some form of expectation. There may have been a few, but very rarely. Very rarely. And if you were to read the comments in these live feeds of those who are gifting these digital items, they have an expectation, a very big expectation. And it's an expectation that will never be filled, ever. But people seek that social interaction and they are paying for attention. And TikTok has monetized that need for attention and just what we seek in general. So they're kind of my target for a while. And that's going to be fun. And I'm going to enjoy that. But anyway, that's another topic. So I think it's been an hour. Yeah, it's been an hour. I think we're going to call it tonight unless anyone wants to chat. I see there's some in YouTube. Maybe I should sign in. How come I can't? Well, I tried. To those who may be chatting and I am not responding, sorry, for some reason it's just not working. I wonder if there's anything on TikTok. Usually I just cut out, but I've been told that I should stick around and interact a bit. Did I close that? Not you. You. Oh, hey, I hope everyone had a happy New Year's and great holidays. I couldn't stream on Tuesday because it was just I live out in the country and it got so loud. So loud. So I had to call it off, which kind of worked out because I got to go hang out with friends and blow up some stuff, and I got a video to prove it. So I think it was worth it. I usually got a thing about sticking to the schedule, but I'm happy that happened. Now I can't find it. Well, I guess it's not meant to be then. All right. Well, good stuff. I enjoyed this. Really enjoyed looking into it. Hope you guys did too. Thank you for watching.